Now, it's great to be in a business that's not that price competitive where you have to go cost plus. You really want to just figure out what the market is for your product and then charge that. And don't try to be using what your cost is plus 5% or 10%, because in the end, overhead will just eat up all that margin. Good money on some jobs, losing it on others. And the problem is he and his partner don't even know that, because however much money he spends on coffee and gas and whatever wasted expenses, he probably takes them out to lunch, whatever he's wasting on that is nothing compared to the amount of money he's spending on just raw granite. And then all the different overhead costs that are baked in, like the cost of those diamond bit blades, the saws that they use to make those countertops are hugely expensive. That stuff has to be baked into the cost of the project. And what'll happen is if you're like, wow, this job's costing me $3,000 and I'm only charging $3,500, I'm not doing that. My crew's gonna cost me so much. And what you'll do is you would just get more bold when you're quoting. You'll say, hey, really love this job, but I'm gonna have to be at 4,500. You're just gonna go in there and instead of taking the deal all the way down to a loss even, you're just gonna say no to some business that you really don't need to be doing, and that frees you up for more profitable work. So if you don't know what you're making or losing on any given job, I mean, that's your number one issue, more than the coffee. If you put the frog in the cold water and just heat it up slowly, they just sit in there and the frog just dies. But if you throw it into a boiling pot, the frog jumps out. Well, expenses are that way. You're like, oh, it's only 10,000 and this is only 5,000 and that's only 20,000. But it totals up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in wasted expenses. Having said that, I'm the worst at trying to control those expenses. I'm always, as an entrepreneur, thinking about my next dollar. I'm not worried about my last one. So I'm not a really good expense controller, but I definitely am going to know how much money I make gross profit on any given job. If you got your paycheck and you work long and you looked at after taxes and everything, you only took home $113, you'd be like, you go right to, wouldn't you? Because you might be afraid to lose your job. But if you realize that all week long you worked so hard and all you took home was $113, you'd be like, dude, I work for you and this is all I get. I got bills to pay. And you'd get really bold about negotiating with him about your pay rate, right? Because who can afford to live on that? And if he gets angry and says, all right, fine, you can leave. Well, you wouldn't care. And that's what helps if you know how much you're going to make or lose on any given job. And the customer's like, hey, you're too high. Other people quoted me less. You'd be like, hey, no worries. Thanks so much for letting us quote it. You just would pass on it and you wouldn't even feel bad about it because you're like, I'm not going to lose money and do work for you. So it just makes you more bold.